Hello and welcome to the podcast version of The Poet, written by Robert R. Ricks and read by the author. The story contains mature content and harsh language. There may be some content which may offend some listeners. If you're easily offended, please stop listening now. This episode is brought to you by Zydeco Online, www.zydecoonline.com, uniting the Zydeco Nation. Hope you enjoy the story. Here we go. Chapter 3. I missed Miami. I missed the warm sun, the smell of the ocean. I missed her most of all. The air had a living vibe. I mean, even with food and water rations, people would still party the night away. I missed that vibe. Now, here I was, 3,050 miles away, staring at a different ocean. A colder, more depressing ocean whose water felt like icy teeth gnawing at your skin instead of warm waves soothing your flesh. No, this ocean wasn't cool blue. It was stone-cold concrete in color to match the misty fog bank that surrounded me. The gentle sound of the waves crashing did little to soothe the torrent of anger and sadness that washed over me constantly, almost as if it had replaced the blood that flowed through me. I loved and hated the ocean at the same time. We used to spend all day and night at the beach, and I knew I'd never have the happiness I felt with her, the sheer joy of her company. Someone was going to pay a whole lot with blood and pain when I found them. I shivered slightly as I felt a chill deep in my core. I needed to get my head back in the game. My partner was quiet most of the time, but must have noticed my distraction and preoccupation with the ocean. "You straight?" I nodded and turned to face him. "Just a bit homesick is all." He simply nodded. I opened my cell and read the text message for a third time. It read, "Take out the trash at Micro Burgers on Ocean Avenue. Yum yum. 4 exclamation points. I showed Billy the message and he tilted his head for a moment and shrugged. This wasn't the first cryptic message we'd received from Psycho, a man who was well deserving of his name. I remembered the first time I met him how badly I wanted to kill him. He even put the gun to his forehead and laughed at me when I couldn't bring myself to pull the trigger. He knew things, and when he mentioned my situation he promised me he'd help me get what I wanted. So I decided to relocate and roll with his crew. Little did I know just what a wild bunch he had rolling behind him. I glanced over at Billy and saw he was studying me. Billy was 5'11", had a medium build. I towered over him, but had to admit he intimidated me a bit. There were lots of cats walking around talking smack at how bad they were and stuff they were capable of. But Billy, he was different. He'd walk into a crowded room, find the baddest mother in the place, and proceed to whoop his ass up and down the room, while calling out anyone else who wanted some. Tattoos on his arm said it all. Billy on one side, badass on the other. Bold friggin' statement, really, but one he had backed up many, many times. We'd run a grip of jobs together, and I liked working with him. He was always on time, didn't ask you a million questions, and really didn't care what the job was. If Psycho ordered it, it was good enough for Billy. Those two had a shared destiny of some sort. Me? Well, I was in to get the help I needed to get some good old-fashioned revenge. Seems my fixation on revenge had garnered me a cute little nickname that the locals here like to refer to me by. Payback. Not the best nickname, but I guess if the shoe fits, you wear it. Where Billy excelled in the melee form of punishment and pain, I went more on the excessive. My weapons of choice were 2 chromed-out Desert Eagle 50 cals. I gotta tell you, the look on people's faces when I flashed the birds was amazing. Kind of a mix of fear and awe at the same time. Friggin' awesome. Billy had parked his car, a bright yellow Toyota Celica 94, tricked out to be show and go across from the building we were supposed to take the trash out of. It was a rally model, and Billy really knew how to drive it. We caught air dozens of times, and he did stuff that would have made Hollywood wet. The best part of his ride was the vinyl banner across the top quarter of the windshield that said Badass. Talk about not really caring who knew who you were. Billy savored the drama, and that always made things more interesting for us. I guess you could say nothing was ever routine or boring while Billy was around. We didn't usually roll this side of town, but since Rampage's crew got jammed up, Psycho had most of us running all over the place. We were supposed to be keeping an eye out for some punk named Ryan Loxon. He used to run with the freelancers, and something happened and a bunch of people ended up dead. That was before my time, so I didn't know much about it. I shrugged it off and focused back on the task at hand. Micro Burgers was a chain that was springing up in places that once were Taco Bells. But when the franchise went high-end, they just dumped the old buildings and moved to safer locations, leaving their stuff behind for squatters like Michael Burger. Funny thing was, all the buildings still had the markings of Taco Bell. Owner of Michael Burger just took a bright orange spray paint can and wrote Micro all over them. We walked towards the building and I shuffled my feet, kicking sand a little ahead of each step. I opened the front door and as we walked in I could see the place was popping, packed from wall to wall. I wasn't too happy about that and Billy must have noticed my brief pause. "Let's just check it out before we do anything," he said. I nodded. We walked in and I have to admit the food smelled pretty damn good. There were no open seats anywhere and there was a line of 10 people in front of us. The kid behind register number 1 was your typical oily-faced teen just trying to earn an honest amaro. The gal behind register number 2 was a sassy sister with a name tag that said Big Mama, who wasn't taking no flack from any of the rowdy customers. Big Mama, I could understand being here. After all, this was a freelancer zone, and you had to either be really down on your luck or kind of crazy to live here. So the kid at number 1 was an enigma to me, which set off all kinds of warning bells. We waited and I scanned the menu and grinned when I saw it was a plywood board with a very simple formula: micro burger, micro cheese, and the mighty micro. There was beer and there was Coke. That was it for the menu. We had our turn with Big Mama, who simply asked, "What y'all want?" I said, 2 mighties for me and a micro for my buddy, 2 Cokes. She punched it up on the register and said, "That'll be 25 Amaros." I paid her exact change. "Thank you. Your order number is 56. Here's your cups." A table opened up and I plopped down. Billy slid in, smooth as glass, and kept his eye on the crowd. Take out the trash. I wondered what Psycho meant by that. There were workers here, some off-duty USU who instantly recognized Billy and took their food to go, and just plain simple folk. I glanced at Billy, who noticed I was fixated on the oily kid at register number 1. I watched Big Mama and noticed that some of the customers, she was slipping them small items with their change. I grinned. Oldest trick in the book. Looked clean but served dirt. So was this the trash Psycho was talking about? "Number 56, she announced loudly. I got up and started towards the counter when suddenly ACU swooped in 2 unmarked cars. I fought my first instinct to pull in my birds free and simply sat back down. I watched register number 1 make an eye gesture towards Big Mama when the ACU burst in. 2 drew down on her, ordering her not to move her big black, "You fill in the rest" of the racist comments. One of them, the larger, more redneck of the 2, simply said, "We've had complaints of you selling contraband here. You'll need to come with us." "Wait!" she wailed. "I got the babies to feed, man. This is a freelancer zone. Y'all ain't even supposed to be up in here." They carted her off, and one glanced back at register number 1, and I suddenly realized what Psycho meant by "take out the trash." The thing about freelancer zones is this: it's free. The market supports what happens. Sure, there's drugs and booze and hookers, but if you don't like it, you don't support it, and things just have a way of working themselves out. When Johnny Law comes in, upsets the natural balance, well, that's when things get all negative. Our job was to make sure we kept things interesting and remind the law who ran things in the freelancer zone. We did. The ACU agents carted off Big Mama and the orders resumed. I looked at Billy and he looked at me with a grin. I nodded and he slid up and out of the booth and headed towards the line. I watched and grinned as he cut ahead of the fidgety, anxious crowd. "Hey, fuckwit! Get back of the—" Poor SOB was silenced with a punch to the throat by Billy. The man crumpled to the floor and was silent. People backed up quickly and headed to the opposite end of the restaurant. I pulled my birds out smoothly and put them below the table and just watched Billy work. Billy leaned over the counter and whispered something to the cashier, who pulled out a 9mm, which Billy took from him pretty effortlessly. "I'm ACU, man. Back the fuck up. My backup's coming right now." Sure enough, the 2 unmarked cars rolled back up. One still had Big Mama in it, and the 3 light-armored ACU agents sprinted towards the door. Billy simply did a single punch which shattered the cashier's face, and he calmly placed his gun on the counter and waited for the ACU to enter. "Get down now!" First agent screamed. "Roger! You okay, man? Roger!" The second screamed towards the oily boy on the ground behind the counter. Third went to check on Roger. Saw a pool of blood forming on the ground. "He killed Roger! You son of a—" Boom! 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 Like a specter of death, I rose and nailed 3 headshots. Everything was in slow motion to me. I watched the crimson blood spray bits of metal, plastic, glass, blood, and bone behind each of them as they were destroyed by my explosive rounds. The menu would have to be redone, but it'd be worth it. I went over and dragged the bodies out the back as quickly as I could while Billy retrieved Big Mama out of the car. Billy and I dumped the bodies in the back dumpster and after setting them ablaze, walked back into the microburger, where a few of the customers were helping clean up the mess. My cell rang and I had a new text message from Psycho. Give me some of those yummy-ass mighties from Big Mama. Return to the net house when you get a chance. I chuckled and placed the order. We sat down and ate ours while we waited, and different folks came up and nodded their approval to us once they realized who we were. The burgers were good, I had to admit, but I still missed the Fritas I used to get. When Psycho's orders were up, we grabbed it and headed out. I had a nervous, squirrely feeling deep in my gut. I knew the day was about to get screwy.